come out, and of course, in conjunction with the Lina and Ogre Magi, it just really suits the draft. Arguably is going to be safe lane, but you could always also see it in the off lane, though it has been a long time since we've had the pleasure of seeing off lane Void. But still, with the setup, like you throw the Chrono out, and suddenly Lina can just do whatever the hell she wants. With the massive attack range she has, and you got Bloodlust to buff both of them up as well. This already looks so darn strong from TNC. However, I love the fact that Reality Rift went into a position one like Spectre, especially considering you need something to go into that uber late game against the Void, though there's an Undying to completely ruin Spectre's lane.
Yeah, this is a really interesting draft from both sides. I have to say, the Void into Bane is actually a bit worrisome, because if you don't catch that Bane in, as a Void, you're really not going to be doing too much. You have no way of purging off any of his spells, because you don't have any defensive support like that on your side. You already have that Lina, Ogre Magi, and the Undying to follow up. So you don't have any way of canceling out Bane's spells if he's too far away. By casting a Void, you'd really have to catch that Bane out with one of your supports, or you have to ensure that the Void just catches the Bane in that Chronosphere. Not only that, but as you mentioned, that Spectre pick up against the Void, it could cause some issues. We have seen a lot of Voids struggle when they don't get their timings right, and Spectre doesn't really care for her own timings, right? She can kind of just farm up if you can buy space with some really aggressive heroes, which Reality Rift does have, especially with that Sky pickup, which I like. It complements that Bane and Tiny quite well, amping up the damage, gives you a good amount of slow. And it really puts into question which one's going to be the core for Reality Rift. Is it going to be a core Sky, which we haven't seen in forever? Is it going to be the core Tiny in the off or mid, perhaps? More likely off, but you can work one of those. It definitely does feel slightly greedy, considering the fact that Bane, Sky, and Tiny want fast EXP. Especially even considering any of these as supports, they do want to get their sixes fast. TNC's is a bit more sacrificial in that sense. The Undying is probably the greediest hero in terms of EXP in this lineup. He really wants his fast levels up to level 5 to maximize his laning potential and early team fights. Beyond that, you can pretty easily channel most of your farm into the Void. The Lina doesn't take too much to come online. So the timings are definitely very different from both sides, especially for the POS 1s. But both teams do look to be building aggressively around those POS 1s.
That's what I love to see, John. I love aggression, right? That's what we need for SEA Dota. We don't need these, 50-minute farm games. We want to see blood spilled, and that is exactly what's going to happen in this game by the looks of it. Though I do also question Reality Rift on what they're planning to do with their support, because it is a question of, is it Tiny, is it Skywrath? I'm more leaning towards the Tiny right now, John, because you've got the Nightmare into the toss back into the tower kind of combination as well as the Avalanche toss. And the Skywrath, as you already mentioned, is extremely greedy in terms of XP, so I feel like they just throw that mid for the Skywrath and see how it pans out. Obviously, though, it does work very well against the Void as well, because you could just kind of deny being able to right-click in the Chrono with your Mystic Flare, and of course you can try and deny the Chrono altogether with the Ancient Seal. Though we'll have to see how Reality Rift plans to run it, as we did see those last bans, the Beastmaster and Invoker being removed. I can see, of course, TNC, they don't want that Beastmaster up against the Void, which is absolutely fair enough. The Reality Rift, you said it, their draft is a little greedy, John. It seems like they need something more sacrificial if they are going to throw someone in the off lane now. I kind of wonder, what do you go for here?
It's really hard to say because this entire lineup is just kind of pretty greedy. You want something that could probably give you a bit better team fight, big AoE control, and that's it. You get Minkunka, you have a great way of extending the life of people in the boat. You have a great way of denying that Chronosphere once again with the boat and and all his toolkit. Of course, it's just really strong in this case. You can keep that Void in place with X, so he's not going to be time walking out as fast as he'd want to. And it's just a great pick overall against TNC. I think that really ruins what TNC wants to do, at least in Chronosphere. They do pick up the death prop for themselves on TNC side, so they've got some good push early on to buy space for the Void. They have some ways of really maximizing that Chronosphere if they can land it in key targets. The issue is you have to really worry about a lot of heroes from Reality Rift in that Chronosphere. You want to catch the Kunkka and the Bane are the big ones. If you don't catch either of those two, you might not get the kills you want in Chronosphere, and then you just waste a massive cooldown and nothing.
It's going to be an interesting game, John. Now, as per usual, I do like to ask you, just between both teams, just purely based on draft and not what teams they are, who do you think came out with the better draft?
It's honestly a bit hard for me to say. I want to say, based on draft, I'd say Reality Rift definitely has it a bit stronger.
Really?
You have to rough out that early start from TNC with the Undying and the Ogre Magi, but you have to remember, the Undying has some pretty strict timings, right? He doesn't transition into the mid game as strong as you'd want if he has a slow start. He becomes an XP sink, and if he misses his timings on his 15 and 20 talents, he can be somewhat of a reliability. You really have to give space to the Undying to greet out there. If Reality Rift can get a better start, then I think they snowball harder. The issue is TNC does have ways of mitigating that snowball start from Reality Rift. It really depends on how the execution of the fights go mid game. If Reality Rift's going to play a really aggressive 4p1, force Gabby to throw chronos that are unideal, force Armel to use his ultimate outside of tower pushes, then I can see Reality Rift delaying the game long enough to get their Spectre on the line.
Well, fair enough, John. Fair points being made. Again, it should be a very interesting game to say the least. So we'll see how well this this new TNC roster performs in this first game. Of course, Reality Rift, they have a lot to prove going into these close qualifiers. They definitely want to see if they can secure themselves a spot in the Chengdu Major. So we'll get into it very, very soon. Alright, and we'll get into it. So it does look like we are having that core ogre coming out from KP, by the way. Tims is playing the pos for Lina. Of course, the Undying's playing the position 5 here, so... Not sure, I mean... It should be interesting with this laning stage, because March is actually going with Gabby at this point. So they aren't actually going to try and shut down the Spectre with that Undying, but rather they want that dual stun combination with the Lina. Unless they send the Spec top, but it doesn't look that way.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. At the very least, March is walking himself up to Tree Hero, so before minute 0, he could get himself a couple of big stacks of decay that should help him out in the initial phase of laning. Otherwise, it's going to be a rough time. If you're going to be lane partners with a Void as the Undying, there's no kill potential there. It's really not a lane that you can work out too well. You really are kind of hard-pressed to run tri-lanes with TNC's lineup as well, though. You want all the heroes to really get the EXP they want. You can't afford tri-lanes because it's just going to slow down your supports too much, especially that Undying. As mentioned, he wants some EXP going for himself. So you're really going to try to find value with where you throw this guy in lane. And again, I'm not too confident with a Void Undying laning combination, but, you know, maybe they know something I don't.
Just the lanes as well here from the side of Reality Rift, John. It looks like Alacrity is playing a mid-tiny for now. Perhaps off-lane Kunkka, is that what we're seeing here? KYXY, he'll be there. And you do have the Skywrath Mage. It looks like Hustler will be playing the pos 4 perhaps on the Skywrath, which, fair enough, again, it does make sense and he is a very strong position 4 to have, especially in that laning stage. I don't know about this though. We've seen a couple nerfs now for Tiny. He's still very, very strong, of course. He still does his job. It seems like they're very, very focused, though, on just trying to win out those lanes, at least for the side of RR. Obviously, both teams are, but it seems like RR are very, very focused on doing that.
Definitely so. The mid lane Tiny up against DP is going to be an interesting one to watch out for. We don't tend to see the mid Tiny as often. And against something like the DP, I don't actually seeing it doing too much. DP just has way too much sustain. Superior range and really spammable spells. The Tiny is limited by that mana pool.
It certainly is. You can already see him starting to struggle a bit, although he does have some nice CS going for himself. But once you run out of that region, that's when things get a bit silly, and of course Armel will just take complete advantage of that once the time comes. Looking down to that bot lane as well. I mean, KP and Tims, you'd imagine they should just have a free lane in the bot lane, and you can already kind of see it, because you look at that Spectre, Lux at 0 CS right now. He should get some underneath his own tier 1 tower, or perhaps just wait out the creep wave. But it looks like TNC is just purely going to dominate this bot lane, and I mean, with this duo, I really can't see the side of RR turning this lane around.
Yeah, it's a rough one. The duo of Bane and Spectre isn't really strong in kill potential as well, so they're going to have to be a bit passive, a bit more defensive, and that's not going to be a good time for Luck. He needs that early farm going. At the very least, he's not supposed to give too much space to KP. If this Ogre Magi gets a decent timing on his Midas, he can snowball quite hard.
Looking back to the mid lane, Alacrity starting to fall very low, only has one Fairy Fire left, but it looks like he's got something on the Courier, and yeah, he'll bring the bottle out. Meanwhile, March will just deny himself off to the Roshan. Fair enough, he's just had enough, needs his mana back, and will TP back to the lane. I just get very concerned here, because, I mean, Alacrity, he's just not having... Well, he's having a great time for now, but even with that bottle, is it going to provide enough regen up against this DP?
It really depends on the rune control that comes out. They have a nice rune ward watching that mid lane for them up top, but the bot lane is definitely dominated by TNC.
Double stun comes out onto Nuts down the bot lane, KP. They move forward, it's a lot of harassment coming out from Tims. So you force that Bane out and suddenly Luck is in well, he's in a spot of trouble as he can't really move up to get those CS. KP, of course, just going to be denying every creep off as the Ogre because he's just so darn tanky. He doesn't care what they throw at him. Back up to the top lane, Gabby. You know, surprisingly enough, is having a pretty decent time. Like, you've got this Skywrath Mage there trying to harass him out. He just doesn't seem to care, though.
Yeah, it's really hard to zone out the Void, and you have to play around that timing of the Time Walk. If he uses it right when you do your burst damage, you're not really doing too much to the Void. He's not going to feel threatened because, again, your timings must be off. You have to always be aware of that cooldown to really maximize this lane.
Oh, Alacrity getting low, although he's man-fighting Armel. Armel doesn't really have mana, but he does have sick charges, and he might turn around for the Crypt Swarm, though Armel will not. Alacrity very, very low in that mid lane, and it looks like he'd rather just leave Alacrity there, although that was a close call from Armel. Almost finds it, but a nice little backstep there from Alacrity, and he will buy himself a healing salve. And meanwhile, bot lane, looks like Luck was kind of just left alone, and KP will capitalize and will pick up the first blood on the Ogre.
Yeah, that's not a great start for RR. That's not the hero they want to be feeding first blood with. Again, you want to really protect the Spectre, ensure a pretty decent start to really start farming into that mid-game, get decent timing in your Radiance, and apply pressure with a Haunt. But with this kind of aggressive lane from TNC, and with a very passive support like the Bane as your partner with the Spectre, it's just very hard to get that space going.
That certainly is. Just back up to top lane where March just throwing out decays left, right, and center. Hustler again trying to apply that pressure on Gabby. Gabby is copying a bit more damage as time goes on because he's got the Tidebringer. In fact, Hustler taking advantage of the Time Walk being used straight away. Gabby did have a salve available though, so he'll be perfectly fine. It's like bot lane though, Nuts trying to go for a boundary rune, may end up giving his life away for this attempt, and KP, he'll throw out the Fire Blast, although he ran back, he may miss the bounty though, no he gets it, and now Nuts should easily just be dead here. He'll try and drag out as much time as he can, although Ancients, not quite, they were asleep at the time, and so KP will pick up his second kill of the game.
Yeah, he's definitely had a good time here in the off lane. This is the kind of start you want for your Ogre.
March just feeding himself to tier 2 again. Nothing too shocking there. But as it stands, John, this Ogre's getting way too much, and now they're going to go again onto Luck. He does have Spectral Dagger available, and of course will commit it. The problem is, though, when you're having a lane this hard, generally speaking, you want to use the dagger to try and get some creep kills. And just using it to try and escape like that, while it is important, definitely is not the way Luck wants to be using it.
Yeah, definitely so. This is a really tight lane once again for TNC. You compare that to the top lane, sure, Gabby's copying a lot of her ass, but he hasn't been shoved out of the lane just yet. He's 24-10. It's a better story than the Spectre. It's still not the best time, but it's an equally aggressive lane for RR up top, except they're really just not finding kills on Gabby, and that's because he's just a bit harder to hit, even though he did just leave Time Walk at level 1.
Well, Alacrity may be able to turn this bot lane around as he is going to find a double damage. Don't know, he's going to go back mid. See if he can catch Armel off guard. Armel doesn't really have any Spirit Siphons available right now, so he's going to be very careful about this as Alacrity. He is in range, but doesn't really go for the Avalanche. Meanwhile, bot lane, they end up finding Tims. A nice pick up there from the side of RR. KP trying to help out, but really, once you're out of mana and your spells are on cooldown, the Ogre can really just right-click.
Yeah, it's good opening from RR to really exploit. They get one nice kill that gives them a good amount of EXP and some gold onto the Bane to help sustain wards as we approach the later part of the laning phase that should give them a bit more of an advantage. They have been working their vision quite well, especially down mid. I mean, Alacrity has been maximizing his ward. It's just that they haven't really committed the supports to help out that mid lane. They're much more focused on the Spectre, which is fair enough. I mean, they want to win out these side lanes just as much as they want the mid. The issue is, I don't think they're winning their side lane strong enough to justify this mid performance just yet.
Certainly not. Looks like Tims will take over the mid lane for a bit as Armel. He's gone down to the bot lane where he will find luck. Won't go for the Siphon, but rather they are going to go after Nuts instead. Nuts, he will go for the Nightmare, but the Siphon is there and they will take the Nightmare. KP will take it himself. They'll keep going after Nuts with the ultimate of the Death Prophet, though no. Just turns back around. He'll just secure that tier 1 tower straight away. And I like that play from Armel. As soon as he essentially has that ultimate up, just rotates down bot, claims the tier 1 tower before the 10-minute mark, and it makes it even more awkward for Luck on that Spectre, because now he's even more limited as to where he can farm.
Yeah, it's a really good move from TNC. Armel definitely playing around that cooldown quite well. We don't see a lot of teams that maximize their spell usage like that, especially in here like DP, but TNC is one of those teams that consistently apply pressure when Exorcism's up, when Chrono's up, so
Gabby,
they definitely are doing quite nice.
Gabby in trouble, although no, he gets a time walk off. Ancient Seal was not long enough, and he barely gets the wand off in time. Meanwhile, Armel ends up finding another kill onto Nuts. They will bloodlust him away, although the toss, it will not make it Alacrity. Still chasing with the Haste Rune, and they miss the LSA. They'll find Armel, and that's a massive kill to get. Although Alacrity may have traded his own life away for this, though no. Tosses KP back. Still LSA does land. They have a Fire Blast, but he is fairly tanky on the Tiny. In fact, he might just turn around with the Avalanche, and yeah, Luck, he haunts in, and a double Avalanche comes out. Nuts is coming in as well with the Brain Sap. It's not enough to find Tims quite yet, but he is still chasing. Luck, can he find it? Toss is there. It's not enough. The Raindrop blocks a lot of magic damage, and Tims wasting a lot of time here, though the tree toss will be enough. They will finally find the kill. And Alacrity making those rotations, trying to help the Spectre out a bit.
Yeah, that's a really nice kill going the way of RR. That is the first haunt of the game as well, so at the very least, Luck gets something from it. He doesn't get the kill, but at least he's around for that EXP and gold. He definitely needs a lot more to get going. We're at the 9-minute mark, and he still hasn't finished up his phase boots. Of course, his lane has been quite hard. He still has a lot of catch-up to play with.
It looks like March is going to get caught out here on the Undying, and they will find another nice kill for the side of Reality Rift. Of course, March, I just understood he was dead. He just let it be, accepted it as the boat was flying towards him. KYXY will enjoy that, as he does have his phase boots and earn up now. Looks like KYXY is just going to go straight into the Spirit Vessel, which is perfectly fair enough, especially while you're going up against a DP and Ogre. Although, speaking of that Ogre, Alacrity gets stunned up though. Nice Avalanche toss, takes down Gabby straight away. And now KP falling low though, Armel. He's popped the ultimate. KYXY being slowed just a bit by that Spirit Siphon. Is it going to be enough though? The Fire Blast comes out, but KYXY, he is still perfectly fine. And so they end up finding Gabby with the Avalanche toss combination. And TNC, they find absolutely nothing.
Not only do they find nothing, they blew their Exorcism there as well. They can't translate that to a push because their wave is way too far back. So, a bit
KP.
eager from Armel, but it doesn't pay off.
Nice toss from Alacrity. He found the right target. So they thought Alacrity had backed off with KYXY, but it was not the case. And now RR going to try and apply some pressure to that tier 1 top tower. And it looks like it is just going to be forfeit from the side of TNC.
Yeah, there's no way they can defend this. Even with the Chronosphere up, if Gabby could make his way up there, they really don't have the spell usage to accompany it so far. They don't have the Exorcism. They're not nearly big enough than everyone else. It's just a pretty slow start for TNC as we go past the laning phase. 7-3 now. RR having a nice small gold advantage, but you definitely feel the momentum on their side.
Looks like Nuts almost getting caught out, but he does throw the Nightmare off onto Gabby. Of course, Gabby does have the Chrono still available to use. So without the DP ultimate, it looks like they're just not interested. So they'll wait another minute for that. Problem is, though, you've given a lot of time for Hustler to farm on this Skywrath, and he's going to get pretty close to getting that Rod of Atos now. And once that's up, Gabby's life becomes a hell of a lot harder on the Void.
It definitely does. That's, again, the biggest worry TNC has is how effective can you expect Gabby to be in that Chronosphere? He has so many heroes to catch out, all of them with pretty massive range. It's just going to be hard. It's not an easy game for Gabby, and You know, he's trying to play catch-up. He has his Midas up, but they're going to have to buy a lot of space for him as well.
KP again caught out. He does throw out the Fire Blast. Boat will end up connecting just barely, and now Lackery runs in with the Avalanche Toss, finds another one. March already dropped the Tombstone, though. He may go down if he's not too careful, but he will heal himself up. The rest of TNC are there to try and help, but they do back off preemptively. So Gabby, mid lane, again, has the Chrono, has an Invis rune if he wants to go for this. He may not even need the Chrono. Hustler is not the tankiest. In fact, oh my, that is not the Chrono you wanted. Still, they should be able to find this kill, though there are TPs coming in, and now the Ancient Steel Mystic Flare. No. It's a lot of damage on Gabby. He doesn't have Time Walk available, and he does go down. Avalanche doesn't really connect, but now Armel gonna be in trouble. The X-Back as well, although KYXY, he moved pretty forward. They'll burst him down. In fact, no, the boat run keeps him alive. Now Tims could be in trouble as Alacrity is gonna chase, but KP, he'll go after the Kunkka. Avalanche Toss is there on Tims. They'll get the toss off on the Lina, and now KP, he's just going to run his way out. Nuts still chasing and has the Nightmare in a second, but he is out of range right now. Though Alacrity does have toss available, they just need the vision. And KP, I mean, he's wasting a lot of time, to be fair, for the side of TNC, just buying them more time, but maybe he even gets out of here. Though he doesn't have a TP available, he will Bloodlust and he'll start chopping his way through the tree line. Nuts, Alacrity, they do find him in the end. He should just be dead, and he is. But John, that Chrono, not the greatest Chrono in the world for the first one of the game.
Definitely not. That was a bit painful to watch. Just unfortunate. Hustler opted to turn around to cast some spells instead of keeping his walk forward. I believe Gabby really just wanted to catch as much of the tower as he could to prevent TPs in. And fortunately, that greedy play just didn't pay off in the end, and it cost them so much. They lose a lot of heroes in that trade. You clearly see RR in a definite gold lead now. 12-5, 2k net worth lead for the guys on Radiant, and the pace of the game for TNC is slowing down a bit. We haven't seen the best uses of Exorcism. We haven't seen the best uses of Chrono so far. And with a lineup like this with the DP, you want to melt those towers faster, but it's just not happening yet. They've only melted one tier 1 so far. And you could say the same for RR. Like, sure, they've only taken that top tower as well, but RR is not as dependent on melting towers for gold. They just need to buy space for Luke, who has been able to at least farm himself up decently. He's not too far behind, at the very least, the Ogre Magi, and considering maybe he's just about 1.5k away from first place, it's
Gabby,
considering how tough that lane was.
Oh, godlike for Alacrity, John. He just picked up the blink. They smoke up straight away, and Gabby just cannot sustain that much damage. Not this early on anyway. In fact, they're running in to try and help out. The smoke is there. Armel, he'll pop the ultimate, but Alacrity is still very scary with that avalanche. Now the boat, it does land on 2 as well. March is trying his best to slow them down with the Flesh Golem, but Alacrity tosses back. He needs some help here, though. Laguna comes in. Everything has been thrown at this Tiny to take him down. And the rest of RR, it looks like they just want to get the hell out of there. No nuts. He stuck around and committed that Fiend's Grip. It will not be enough to take down anyone on the side of TNC. And TNC do pick up 2 very nice kills for themselves.
Yeah, that's a pretty good trade coming out. Probably not the best use of Exorcism, but they do clear out some camps here. They get some nice kills. And you are still seeing signs of life. Again, if TNC can just execute these fights as they want, they can still find the kills. It is a bit rough, right? When that boat comes out, the rum buff is just a bit too much to deal with. You can see how much damage is negated out. That Laguna Blade just looks like it doesn't do anything at all. It just tickles them when that buff is up.
It really does. At the very least, TNC, a lot of gold going their way after that engagement. Still, though, you did commit the DP ultimate and you didn't really find any towers out of it. And as we all know, the DP ultimate, I mean, generally speaking, you want to try and secure a tower straight after you start the fight, but just didn't have enough time to really get there. And so Armel, one ultimate did find a T1 bot, but that's really all we've gotten so far. And in fact, RR, I mean, they're pretty much even in terms of towers, but it does still look like they maintain more map control than TNC does.
It definitely feels that way, especially with how aggressive their wards are. They've got some, well, they did have some wards further out a while ago, but it seems like it's all gone now. Still, RR has been on the offensive end. They've been the guys smoking up. In fact, they're smoked up once again, and they're just constantly applying this pressure.
I mean, with this Blink Dagger on the Tiny, Armel, They seem to know he's there, and he's just standing there right now, and Horn comes in as well to give vision. Avalanche is there. Toss into Armel as well. He's not quite dead yet. Boat will fly in, and Nightmare on KP will be enough to take him out. Armel still falling low. Gabby, he has the Chrono available with a double siphon. It's a lot of damage, but there's the Mystic Flare coming out, and he's actually doing no damage with the right click, so now the Avalanche toss Alacrity. He finds another. March is the only one left there, and it looks like he's going down as well. And it looked pretty good with the Spirit Siphons, but just the right-click damage coming out of Gabby. I mean, he only has Treads and Midas, John. He just doesn't do much damage unless he gets the bashes.
Yeah, it's one of the things with a Void. Early game, it's just hard for him to take these big Chronos. He has to land them, but he doesn't have the damage to do anything about it. And you didn't have Tims around that close by enough to really help out there. The DP already launched her spells, and it really doesn't amount to much. Again, the boat buff is just causing a lot of issues as well. Reality Rift just maximizing that spell as much as possible, and it has been paying off. KYXY has been keeping his team alive throughout these engages much more often than you want to as TNC would. You know, they really have lost a lot of their burst in that Lina, which they depend on a lot because of that boat buff, and they're going to have to find a way to rectify that. They should try to get the jump in KYXY when he's alone, stun lock him, take him out, then if you could transition that to something else, maybe an objective, a tier 1 tower at this point would be really nice, especially considering that, again, you only took that one down bot, and you have a DP. You kind of want to melt these towers faster.
It just doesn't seem like they're in a position, though, with the Void just being so far behind right now. I mean, he's so low in net worth. He's the 5th last as that position 1. And, well, Tim's got to be very careful on this lane as he may just get caught out. See Nuts coming in. He has Nightmare available. Of course, he has Fiend's Grip as well if he really wants to, but we'll see as TNC. They've started applying pressure down at the bot lane, and they might find luck here. But no, he will back off into the tree line. He seems to know something is awry. So both teams essentially just pressuring the off lanes of each other. Looks like RR probably will clean up this tier 2 tower. And TNC, they're not quite there right now. It looks like they're just waiting for luck to prop back out on the spec so they can actually find a kill before they can go for the tier 2.
Yeah, that's a fair enough move. Haunt isn't quite up yet, although it's up in like a second. It does look like Look does take the safer route to just farm up. And you take a look at that Spectre, you look at his itemization, he's actually going for the Manta style first. I think that's actually pretty good, especially with how he's been playing. He's been playing really aggressive in the front, always using that Haunt pretty much all the time when it's off cooldown. Just maximizing its usage, trying to find kills, help his team out. And that tends to really favor something like the Manta style first or the Diffusal first, and it just shows you that RR understands how to play this game. They just want to play aggressively. They want to shut down Gabby before he's online, before the synergy with that Chronosphere is going to be maximized, and they have been doing a really good job of that. They clear out that tier 2 as well. You don't see any sort of big defense coming out from TNC. They don't even manage to take that tier 2 down bot as well, so the trades are not working in the favor of TNC right now.
They certainly are not, though. TNC, they're focusing quite hard on that farm. They understand. They've still got the late game in the Void DP. They've just got to try and catch up the best they can. Of course, the Spectre is very, very dangerous late game. Don't get me wrong, John. It's just they've just got no chance of these fights right now, especially with Alacrity and the way he's setting up these team fights. And in fact, they have smoked up. They are going for more, and it looks like they are going to run to an easy Undying kill, although Armel is around the area, and they'd rather that one. And he jumps in. Avalanche is there. Toss back as well. Hustler will just destroy him. In fact, Luck's the one who picks up the kill, and now the Haunt straight into the Undying. They'll find a double on Luck on this Spectre, and that is even more bad news for the side of TNC.
Definitely so. Again, you take a look at Luck, you see how he joins his teams with no hesitation to find these kills. It's what's building him up. He had a rough laning phase. He's now only about 1k gold behind his own Kunkka. He's overtaking the Void in terms of net worth. He's overtaken the Midas Ogre Magi in terms of net worth. And this is really, really a bad sign for TNC. Their lineup is geared a bit earlier. You have a timer on the Undying. You have a bit of a timer on the effectiveness of that Ogre Magi until he skewers back to effectivity at late game. But it feels like TNC is definitely not maximizing any early synergy with that Chronosphere. Gabby, we've only seen him use it once. We have seen the Exorcism a couple of times in team fights. Hasn't transitioned to a tower fight anytime recently, and TNC looks to be satisfied to just wait it out. As we mentioned earlier, it looks like they're satisfied to play the farming game compared to Reality Rift, which is funny to think about. I mean, Reality Rift, they're the guys with the Spectre. They're the guys that kind of want to take it to the late game, but they're the ones bringing the aggression in this game as well.
Well, certainly are. Of course, interesting to note, Gabby, it looks like he's actually rushing a BKB, so rather than going for the straight Maelstrom, he'd rather go for the BKB first, just so he has survivability in these team fights. That isn't really going to solve the issue of him really having no damage though during the chrono, but it looks like they are just going to depend on Mel to get that work done while the chrono's going. I suppose at this point you really don't have a choice in the matter, as, I mean, Gabby, he's probably very, very sick of dying to the Tiny.
Definitely so. He just doesn't really have too much to do anymore. I mean, he's trying to farm up. The BKB should help him, and you consider the fact that in that chrono as well, he's very vulnerable to a lot of big spells. With that BKB, he only really needs to worry about the Bane, so that's going to be his prime target every single time. Get through that BKB piercing control, and then he's going to be happy. He doesn't need to worry about the Sky. He doesn't need to worry about the Kunkka stopping him in his tracks. He can get a lot more work done. The issue is the damage, again, isn't quite there. You mentioned relying on Armel, and that can work out for a bit. I think you really need the Ags up in the DP to make that super effective, though.
Well, it looks like he will be going for the Ags up next. Probably have it very, very soon on Armel. Been farming very well this game, though surprisingly enough, the offlane Kunkka is the one at the top of the net worth board now, so KYXY really been focusing on that farm. Has got himself to a very nice position with that BKB, and may even go for a Heaven's Halberd after this. That would make it even harder for the likes of Gabby to get any work done during the chrono, though. Nice smoke, but Nuts breaks it. He may die for this, though. Nightmare comes out, and they're going to go for a fight. It looks like Reality Rift. They want to take this. Chrono is available, though. This is a very scary team fight for them. Although Fiend's Grip, he committed it. Oh, that is very preemptive, though. Avalanche Loss is there. Armel pops the BKB, survives it. They'll go straight after the Tiny. Nice torrent, though. They'll take down March on the Undying. Meanwhile, Hustler, he'll go down as well. Now the chrono comes out from Gabby. That's the one they needed. The buybacks are there. They're TPing into the Shrine. Alacrity, he's back in straight after Armel. Can they burst him down? They definitely can. And now KYXY gonna chase after the side of TNC. KP, is he the target? No, they'd rather Gabby, although Gabby will go for the TP play. And no, Rod of Atos will barely not make it for Hustler. And KP will also walk out. A lot of buybacks being committed there from Reality Rift, and I think in the end you definitely call that TNC's win. But Reality Rift really ensure they can't capitalize off that team fight, because they really can't get any towers after that thanks to those buybacks. In fact,
Yeah,
Alacrity,
oh my god.
Gabby. Okay, maybe it wasn't TNC's win.
How did Alacrity get there so fast? Like, geez, he just TP'd down to the Shrine, didn't he, after that buyback?
I
How did he
believe
get there?
He may have had a haste rune.
Oh. I mean, I was gonna say that was a pretty decent fight for TNC overall, but when you lose Gabby and March like that again,
It's still
overall,
going, John.
the state of the game.
KP in trouble. Spirit Vessel is there though. Armel gonna come in now. Uses him up. Misses the Crypt Swarm. Now BKB comes out and Armel. He really doesn't want to die like this. The KYXY will just TP out right in front of them. Gives him the bow while he's getting out. And RR, I mean, really surprising us in this game number one. They are playing very dominantly so far.
They definitely are. Like, that last team fight, it looked good for TNC. They forced some buybacks out. Sure, they lose a couple of cores, but overall, that was the best team fight they had in a while. And then you lose Gabby solo up top. And then you're forced to respond at bot lane as well. This is really not how TNC envisioned this game going. Again, that was their best Chronosphere of the game so far. And it didn't really amount to a big shift in the pace of the game. Now, granted, you know, they still have a couple of ways to hold this high ground. In fact, their high ground game is really good, considering that Chronosphere is one of the best spells for high ground team fights, if you can cast it properly. TNC is definitely not out of it, but the momentum is not in their favor. RR has worked their lineup quite well. You're at the point where Luke is getting a bit too big to control as well. Like, he's going for the heart now. He's got the Diffusal Manta. He hits like a truck. He's hard to kill off. And you have to consider he's hard to kill off by himself, and then he gets the boot buff on top of that. How do you actually kill the Spectre with your lineup right now, with the farm you have?
It's a good question, John. It's a very, very good question indeed. Of course, we did have a quick look at that win probability right now, and it's currently at 69% the way of Reality Rift. So certainly Dota Plus agrees with the sentiment. You can see RR, like they're never split up. Unless it's Alacrity finding an easy solo pickoff, they just stick together and they don't give the openings to TNC to try and just jump in and make a massive play happen. And in fact, they may go for a smoke. In fact, they do. Where do they head though? They don't really have much vision in the dire jungle. It seems like they are aware though of where they are. And well,
Oh, nice scan.
It is a very nice scan indeed, but that's just March. He may break the smoke for the side of TNC. Don't forget, DP Ultimate and Chrono is available right now anyway. March. Gonna be a very easy kill though, Gabby will just get the hell out. Immediate TPs though. Are they gonna try and fight this? Surely not. It's a 4v5 already. They'll use up Alacrity, but here comes the Horde Armel. BKB's up Gabby. Oh, he gets speed script through the BKB, and now the boat flies in. Armel still going after the Tiny, but the Invis Rune will save him. They'll go after the Bane instead. Nuts. He goes down. KYXY still fighting Armel. There's the Chrono. It's massive, but where's the damage? They have the DP ultimate, but it's not doing quite enough. In fact, Hustler throws out the flare. It won't be enough. The Void may drop here to Alacrity and does do so. Armel still man-fighting the rest of RR.
Ooh.
My goodness. And it looks like TNC may have won, though. No Alacrity. He jumps back in. He finds Armel. They'll fire blast him up, KP. He's going to try and control him as Tim's chasing KYXY March. He'll jump back in with the Flesh Golem and with the Tombstone. KYXY, look how tanky this man is, John. He does go down, but now the Avalanche toss. March may end up dropping. Don't know. It looks like they have found Alacrity, and that will be TNC's win. And it just doesn't matter if it's 4v5 apparently. If you land the right Chrono with the Death Prophet ultimate, John, it just stacks up so much.
It definitely does. That was the best fight TNC had. Period. That's straight up their best team fight yet. Gabby, he had the patience to hold on to that Chronosphere to really make it happen, to make it work out for his team, and in the end that does pay off. That gives them a massive gold swing their way again, giving them a slight net worth advantage. And it does allow them to transition to at least a tier 1 down mid. So it gives them a little bit more control back in the map. I think the big issue for RR there was they were standing on the high ground. They dropped the ward to reveal their smoke first. They only eliminate March. And then you had Alacrity standing around with an Invis Rune under a Sentry Obs. Like, they should have been aware of that when their ward was kind of found out by March. They should have known that the Sentry was there.
Definitely should have. Looks like it was just the heat of the moment. They just weren't quite aware. Regardless, though, Gabby now really starting to catch up on the Void. He's got that Maelstrom up, going straight into the Mjolnir next. And I mean, that last team fight, it looked so bad as Gabby, he BKB'd and got Fiend's Grip, but it just didn't matter as it looks like the Lina did get the stun off to cancel that Fiend's Grip and allow Gabby to get the Chrono he needed. So, TNC suddenly back into this with a 2k net worth advantage. And they should be able to claim this bot tier 2 as Hustler. He'll just TP out. He realizes there's no defense coming from the rest of his team. Those towers we were talking about finally going to die away. In fact, Armel, I believe, has the full Aghanim Scepter up now. He's just bringing it out on the courier. Although, RR, they just go straight after the Roshan instead with that double damage on Luck. And it looks like TNC have absolutely no idea that this is actually happening.
Yeah, this is going to be a free Roche going away of RR, and that should help them in the next team fight. Again, these team fights, they are working out for TNC at the very least. The last one worked out for TNC. With a second life on Luke, it might not be as clean going as you'd want, and he's just about to hit his level 20 talent as well. So he could potentially have 500 more HP to deal with. Not only that, but his heart is inching closer and closer. So he's going to be much more durable and spreading so much more damage with that dispersion that I'm not sure if you have enough sustain on TNC's side to really keep yourself alive. You have that Ogre Magi at the very least, and with a pipe, and you have the Undying, so you have ways of healing up, but you have to always be conscious of that Spectre. It's just going to be a very hard target to burst down when she's dispersing on everyone quite hard.
Oh. KP, he did just pick up a Scythe device as well, so at the very least, I mean, that dispersion's still going to be a problem, but they've got a lot of control here now on the side of TNC. I mean, this lineup from the side of Reality Rift, it does seem like it may end up dropping off later on. I mean, Luck, he's about to pick up the heart. Of course, Spectre does tend to go crazy once she's got a heart up, but still, it is against the Void, and Void is very, very popular in this meta for a reason. We'll see,
Definitely so. There's one item that is going to be coming out in RR that gets me pretty excited, Mike. Alacrity went for the right-click build. He's already finishing up his Daedalus. He's going into the Ags next, and that makes me really happy. That's just going to make that Chronosphere work against them if they don't catch a Tiny out. Even then, you know, every single combination they throw out, just on top of that with the tree toss, I can't really imagine anyone surviving that bombardment.
We have an interesting smoke here. TNC, they have smoked up and they're looping around to that T1 tower. Looks like they're going to try and use Gabby as bait.
Oh.
Thing is, you're going into an Aegis. This is going to be a hard team fight. So there's the Hex coming out. They're going to get started. Fire Blast is there. Armel silences up as well, but there's the man to dodge. Boat flying in. Armel will cop it. Luck, again, still has the Aegis available, so they may just want to fight this. But it looks like they do hesitate to jump back in as Gabby is missing. But they are going to stick around. They're going to go for this defense attempt. Alacrity's going to find at least one of the supports in the backlines before they get started. Armel with that Aghanim Scepter, though, being very frustrating, taking that T1 tower so darn quick. Though they will back off on the side of TNC, they understand their limits, of course. Again, an Aegis on a Spectre, definitely not great to fight against.
Definitely not. Although RR is still on the chase, they did smoke up as well. Alacrity, is he going to blink forward and try to find something?
Well, there's the Haunt for the Vision. Armel, no, they'll go after March. They defuse him instead. He'll be the easiest, though. Nice avalanche coming out from Alacrity and the crit on the cleave. He does have the Daedalus, so he's hitting for over 1k right now. And with that, do they just go for tier 3 towers? The buyback will be there, but the Lena's dead for another minute and a half. Luck says, screw it, I'll be on the front lines for the team. He doesn't have that heart available yet, but he is still very, very tanky. Double Hex, though, coming out from KP. That is a great start to a team fight if I've ever seen one. Though Nightmare on Luck, they'll Spirit Vessel, will Spirit Siphon up Alacrity, and now the Mystic Flare, though. Luck is falling low. Toss him out. Gabby jumps in with the Chrono. Who's he hitting, though? He doesn't hit anyone. He does finally take down Alacrity. The Avalanche and Bean's Grip was finally there, though, and well, it looks like Nuts probably will be the sacrificial lamb for the team. They really wanted that Spectre. They won't quite get him, as he does get himself out. Nuts will not be so lucky. The TNC, well, they get a gem for their trouble as well. Probably will be pretty happy with that.
Definitely so. That gave them a massive amount of gold as well. You have to remember just how much that Tiny is worth. Overall, their team was worth quite high, so those kills give them a good amount to bounce back on. And you're starting to see the power of TNC come in. They have damage on their Void now. They have really good damage on Armel now. And that really stacks up. They can do the damage in the Chronospheres. They can find the burst they need. It looked pretty bad for RR, especially since Luke was about to be caught in that Chrono if he wasn't tossed back. And if they managed to find that Spectre there with the Aegis, and then find that follow-up kill, that would have been massively bad for RR. So fortunately for them, they don't lose Luke. They did expand their Haunt there without really finding anything, and that's probably the first time we've seen that in a while, where RR's Haunts don't pay off. So it is somewhat of a worrying sign. As long as TNC can keep those kinds of fights going, that kind of coordination up, I think it's very likely that the Chronosphere is going to be a bit too much to deal with now, because they can definitely follow up quite nicely.
I mean, a bit of coordination jump, but also a bit of luck coming out from KP on the Scythe of Vice. I mean, double Scythe of Vice, I would argue, is even a better opening than the Chrono is. Of course, you can just set up the Chrono straight after that. And, well, that's something RR have to be very, very wary of, is getting the whole team hexed up. Could be very concerning for their chances. Still though, Hustler, he has a Scythe device up himself on the Skywrath Mage now, so you've got some form of control there. And as time slowly goes on, TNC, their BKBs are starting to drop lower and lower. So these Scythe devices are going to see more play in these team fights. Still TNC. Just going to protect Gabby, make sure he doesn't get himself in trouble. Looks like Gabby is getting very, very close to picking up a Satanic now.
Yeah, that's going to help him out, especially with all the damage that can come outside that Chrono from RR if he doesn't catch everyone that he needs to. Especially that Tiny, of course. The Kunkka as well does a good amount of damage, and the Dispersion's just really nasty. So having that lifesteal is a good boon.
Bot lane looks like Hustler has overextended. He found the tier 1 bot tower at the very least for the side of Reality Rift. Tried to take down March, but didn't quite have the damage output, and does end up giving his own life away. I suppose in the end, I mean, you take the tower, you're probably going to be alright.
You would be. Overall, that is a slight win for RR. That's still a good amount of gold going back to TNC. You take a look at that net worth now. It's 7k lead for TNC, but 30 to 19 in terms of kills. Of course, that doesn't matter as much as the state of the game. And it feels like RR has given a bit too much back to TNC. TNC can take these fights now. You have at least the level 15 talent up on March. He is working to get that level 20 now as well. Trying to get that, the Tombstone talents are both pretty good. I'm not sure which one you would prioritize here, but it's really potent. It's a massive power spike for that Undying once he hits that level 20. And again, you take a look at Gabby. He's farming up nicely. He's top of net worth now after being pretty much middle for most of the game. He's definitely top now. He finished up his Satanic. He's going to be much more durable in these fights and just much harder to take care of in that Chronosphere.
It certainly is. Gabby will claim that tier 1 top tower. Of course, they have the DP ultimate, they have the Chrono. They'll just go for that tier 2 top tower as well and try to force a team fight out of Reality Rift. The only thing is, it looks like they're going to do the exact same thing and try to push the bot tier 2. So both teams essentially probably just going to get the trade-off. Though TNC may be able to force a tier 3, as their tier 2 is basically gone. But they will not, they won't even go back to defend. RR, just leave some Mantle Illusions behind, get some tier 3 damage, and just back the hell out of there. Or maybe not, Lacrity's waiting. Here we go, the X does blink forward, looks like Tim's was out of there in time. And so perhaps they're just going to slow siege the tier 3.
That is an option, and you can kind of do that, but at the same time, it's a bit of a risk for RR. You don't want to be overextending in the lane too hard, because if the DP stays behind in the lane, she can melt tower so much faster. It's just ridiculous with that Ags, how fast these objectives fall. You have to be ready to go back home any single time. You do have Haunt up on Luke, so he can just go back home and kind of take that fight himself, or at the very least delay it long enough for your teammates to come back in.
Well, they're sticking around though. I mean, Nuts and Alacrity are just there waiting for someone to pop their head out. And Tim's may do so, but he is being very hesitant. He knows something's wrong. He'll just stay on the high ground. I mean, I suppose in the end, RR and Alacrity, they're kind of just wasting some time here. So you are pushing the lane, but look over to the side of TNC. They're farming quite heavily, so they're definitely getting the positive trade out of this farming game. Although, bot lane, it looks like Alacrity has jumped in, but Tim's, he got the LSA. It won't matter though, he does get X'd back. And so now they'll back off, and both teams are being very cautious at the moment because they know that there's a storm coming.
Definitely so. They don't want to take any fight that's going to put them in the back end, because again, their tier 3s are all open now for the most part. They have done a lot of chip damage. Oh no.
Spectral Dagger, he'll get away. The silence wasn't there, although they might find Alacrity. Still, Haunt comes out. Gabby doesn't pop the Chrono quite yet, but the Shrine is there. It won't matter. Fiend's Rip comes out as well. He's still surviving somehow, Alacrity, but he should go down though. Gets the toss off into Gabby. Now they're moving in. They want to take this team fight. The Spectre though is copying a lot of damage from Gabby, and now the Chrono as well. Secure that kill. Don't let her get away, although she's so darn tanky, and the side of TNC are starting to fall low, but the buybacks are coming up from Reality Rift as well. They want to keep this fight up. KYXY, he gets melted. March is somehow still alive, but that avalanche is massive from Alacrity. Still, it's not enough as Gabby, Mystic Flare, the tosses. He actually tosses him out of the Mystic Flare, but he goes down anyway. Oh, Mel, he's going to man fight by himself now. Though, can he do it? Tim's is still around on the Lena. He'll get the stun off Alacrity. It's going to be a dieback on him, but luck now is on Armel. Take this DP out, and Armel looks like he will not survive. He'll go down as well, and they have found Tim's on the Lena. It's going to be a rampage coming out for luck, but it does cost them a hell of a lot of buybacks. Nevertheless, though, John, Roshan is up in 5 seconds, and Hustler should be able to scout it out.
Yeah, that's actually really worthwhile for RR. It's a massive gambit, though. They have no buybacks for the next 7 minutes on any hero because they bought back on every single one. And actually, props to TNC for actually managing to force that out. They're going to be able to take this Aegis and Cheese on RR's side. That should help them get some breathing space for themselves. It's still a pretty worrisome spot. They've gone all in on those buybacks. They want to maybe either delay the game long enough or force the same situation onto TNC. It's rough, right? RR, they still definitely went out in that team fight somewhat. And those buybacks definitely got them the kills. The dieback on Alacrity is pretty unfortunate and rather big, as, again, for the next 7 minutes, he's not going to have buyback. So a key part of your defense is that Tiny and the damage he pumps out. It's not going to be available if TNC does manage to take the next few fights. You also have the level 25 talent up on Gabby now. He did opt for backtrack down. So it's going to be much harder to clean up this void. And off TNC is going to be up right in time to prevent any high ground push.
Certainly, I mean, they didn't have much time. I thought Reality Rift may just try to go for that tier 3, but they risk nothing. They'll just reset. They've got the Aegis. Wait for Alacrity to be back up before you try to make any more plays. Of course, KYXY, he does have the cheese. So both teams, again, probably going to get back to that little bit of cautious stage. Look at that win probability, and it's actually still very, very even between the two. TNC, though, has gained the advantage at 60% their way, but after that team fight, it actually started drifting back up towards the side of RR. So apparently Dota Plus doesn't really care about the buybacks being expended from RR, but rather they actually help them essentially raise their win probability.
I think that's fair, right? Again, they got their buybacks out, but they managed to get a nice full team fight and translate that to the Roche. That basically nearly cancels out the effect of those buybacks, at the very least on 2 heroes. So Luke is not going to be too unhappy, and KYXY is not going to be too unhappy. The rest of your team is going to have to play a bit more cautious, but you have some breathing space with your Spectre and Kunkka. And you do have time to farm up to try to catch up in terms of net worth to these bigger heroes on the Dara side. I mean, right now, TNC has a pretty considerable net worth lead, and that has kind of been showing. Like, the Void, Gabby has been doing a lot of damage. He is working towards his MKB next, and that's just going to boost it up by so much more. He's really tanky with that Satanic and the backtrack talent. So it's hard to actually clean up Gabby now.
Well, it looks like they might go for a smoke, TNC, but they've been grouped up for a while, but no, nobody really has a smoke on them. They'll just go for those 45-minute bounty runes by the looks of it, although March, he does have 2 in the backpack. Won't pop them out yet. Gabby, of course, definitely wants to wait for that MKB. If you look at Gabby, he does have the butterfly up now. Excuse me, if you look at Luck, he does have the butterfly up. So both teams just going to secure both bounty runes for themselves. Gabby, I imagine once he has that MKB up, maybe wait another minute or 2 for the Aegis, but then you probably could go for that smoke we were talking about.
Definitely so. You want to maximize this window where there are no buybacks. There's only a very small window where there are no buybacks and no Aegis. It's a bit of a calculated risk if you're going to go for that one. The thing with TNC is, if they take that team fight, they can melt the towers really fast. They have that DP, they have the Lina who can melt towers fast, you have a Ogre Magi who can make the faces void right-click much faster, and the objectives aren't going to be standing for too long if you manage to get that favorable fight. The thing is, RR is playing really defensively, and unlike RR, TNC doesn't have anything like the Haunt to give them information, so they're really going to have to go in blind. They have 2 aggressive wards, semi-aggressive wards by the river. That's pretty much it.
Both teams just kind of hanging around that mid lane, although bot lane, Gabby gets a haste rune. He was spotted for a second, but they won't go for any sort of play. Alacrity with that Aghanim Scepter, we'll see how much he can get done. He did remove it from his quick buy, but it looks like he will just pick it up, and he'll be very scared of that tree volley. So RR, smoked up. Of course, they have the Haunt on Luck. He's got a double damage right now as well, so if they could find a team fight, it'd be amazing for the side of the Radiant. TNC playing this very smart. They may find KP. In fact, he will kind of reveal his location. Though no, they want Armel. They're looping around. Hustler will go in with the Glimmer Cape, and now, well, Mystic Flare will not be effective with the Force Staff. They might find KP instead. The boat flies in. Gabby, he'll find a massive Chrono, though. Can they burst them down on the side of the Radiant? It looks like they can, as Hustler does end up going down on Armel. Who's he chasing? They'll go after the Kunker instead. Luck trying to get something done. The cheese has been ate by KYXY. March, he'll end up dropping as well. RR, they're in trouble. They'll lose KYXY. They'll lose the Spectre as well, though KP does drop. Nuts is gone as well. There's only Alacrity left, and can he clean up? He's got a lot of tosses. Luck will essentially respawn thanks to that Aegis, though the tiny Alacrity just being kited around. He'll end up going down, and now Luck, he wanted a TP, but the side device from KP is just perfect, and with that, they will find the secondary life of the Spectre, as that dispersion really is not doing very much. And that's going to be a full team wipe coming out for the side of TNC. And reality, I mean, it's unfortunate because you have the Aegis and you want to take the team fight. The only problem is, you know, TNC have all their buybacks available.
Yeah, they took a massive risk by forcing that fight out in that weird window where they still don't have buybacks. They're just going to lose these objectives.
And even Tim
they
says
have about a minute.
Tim's with the voice lines just letting them know that was not a good idea. And yeah, tier 4s, there's no buybacks available. This looks like it's just GG. There's just no way to defend this. Mel refreshes, pops the ultimate, and yeah, Tim says it again, just really rubbing it in. Gabby giving it to him as well. The GG will not be called though. RR, they're holding on. I'm not sure what they're waiting for. Perhaps just having a quick conversation.
It's rough. Damn.
Unfortunately.
Just damn. What the hell?
Rough game for Reality Rifters. I mean, they looked amazing at the start. They were making TNC not look like a very good team, John, but TNC, they just had confidence with themselves in the later stages of the game. Gabby catches up, everyone else catches up, KP with the multiple site devices. What are you going to do if you're Reality Rift? You make one mistake, the game's over.
Yeah, look, they tried to capitalize on the fact that they had the Aegis and the cheese. They wanted to siege the high ground. They tried to force a fight. I mean, they jumped the right target. They were trying to burst down Armel. They didn't do it fast enough. He did get Force Staffed out as well. And it fell apart from there. Armel was too far. You had to overextend on Luke. Your team backline had to move forward into the enemy team. It was just a mess. And unfortunately for Reality Rift, that massive gambit did not pay off. So they had some really good signs of life, though, which makes me hopeful for them in Game 2. But TNC shows us why they're TNC. They just turn these situations around every single time, Mike.
Yeah, great performance from both teams. Of course, Game 2 will be coming up within a few minutes, guys. Won't be too long. It is MLP Dota and John X Fire. We'll be back with you in just a second for that game number 2.